Me tell you something. Most people never say out loud, the most dangerous person to a narcissist is the one they underestimated. The super empath. The empath is the one who feels everything. They feel the room, they feel the tension, they feel the responding. When they set a boundary and actually mean it, the narcissist doesn't know what to do because now they're irrelevant, invisible, powerless. You see, healing, it's punishment for the narcissist because healing means I see what you did and I'm not broken. I see how you tried to control me and I'm free. I see your lies and I choose truth. And nothing tortures a narcissist more than watching the one they tried to destroy rise up, rise strong, and rise without them. Empaths feel everything. Every shift in energy, every unsaid word, every flicker of emotion in a room, they sense it all. It's not a choice, it's how they're wired. They can walk into a space and immediately pick up on the undercurrents, the tension between two people who smiled at each other but aren't really okay, the sadness behind a laugh, the fear behind an angry outburst. They don't just notice emotions, they absorb them. That's what makes an empath so powerful and at the same time so vulnerable. Now here's the twist. Narcissists are the opposite. They don't feel what others feel. They don't tune into your discomfort, your boundaries, or your needs. But that doesn't mean they're emotionally dumb. In fact, they're calculating. While an empath naturally connects to people, a narcissist studies people. They learn what gets a reaction. They learn what buttons to push. They crave one thing more than anything else: control. Control over perception, control over emotions, control over people. This is where the dynamic gets toxic fast. The empath, so attuned to others, often tries to soothe, fix, or make sense of the narcissist's pain. They assume the narcissist is just misunderstood, that maybe if they love them harder, show more patience, or give more grace, they can pull the real person out from behind the mask. But the narcissist doesn't want to be healed. They want to be obeyed. They feed off attention, drama, power. They exploit the empath's kindness and repackage it as weakness. And the empath? They start to question themselves. They begin to think they're too sensitive, too emotional, too much. That's exactly how the narcissist wants it. Because the more confused and self-doubting the empath becomes, the easier they are to manipulate. That's the narcissist's playground: confusion, contradiction, chaos. They'll throw compliments laced with insults. They'll say you're the best thing that ever happened to them, then turn around and treat you like a burden. And all the while, the empath feels it all. The love, the pain, the guilt, the hope. It's like emotional whiplash. The narcissist feels nothing, not in the way the empath does, but they're always watching, always calculating what keeps the power in their hands. The narcissist's game is manipulation. It's not just something they do, it's how they move through the world. Every conversation, every gesture, every word is part of a strategy. They test boundaries early, often in small, subtle ways. They push just a little, then pull back. They pay attention to what you react to, what makes you feel seen, what makes you feel insecure. Then they use that data against you. It's not always explosive or obvious. In fact, the most dangerous narcissists are the charming ones, the ones who pretend to care, who mirror your values, who listen just enough to make you think they're genuine. But underneath it all is one motive: control. They manipulate with guilt, with flattery, with silence, with anger. They create a cycle where they lift you up just high enough to make the fall more painful. That's the game. Get you attached, get you emotionally invested, make you question your own instincts. The longer you stay in the cycle, the more disoriented you become. You start doubting what you saw, what you heard, what you felt. You blame yourself for their behavior. You try harder to earn their love, not realizing that love was never what they were offering. It was bait. But here's where the empath's power comes in: awareness. When an empath becomes aware, really aware, they become unstoppable. Empaths don't manipulate, they don't seek control, but they notice patterns. They recognize energy shifts. They start to see that the same emotional roller coaster keeps repeating. They begin to name things: gaslighting, love bombing, devaluation. They learn what projection looks like, what triangulation feels like, how emotional manipulation disguises itself as concern or affection. The empath starts connecting the dots between the narcissist's words and their actions. And the picture that forms is not love, it's control. This awareness doesn't come all at once. It comes in waves. A gut feeling here, a moment of clarity there. But with each wave, the empath gains ground. They start trusting themselves again. They start observing instead of reacting. They stop absorbing and start analyzing. The things that used to confuse them now become predictable. The narcissist's tactics lose their power because the empath is no longer responding from a place of confusion. They're responding from clarity. And in that clarity, the empath begins to take back what was stolen: their voice, their boundaries, their sense of self. A super empath doesn't fight back in the way most people expect. They don't scream. They don't throw things. They don't try to hurt the narcissist the way the narcissist hurt them. That's not how they're built. Their power isn't in matching chaos with chaos. It's in stepping outside of it completely. At first, they might get caught in the storm. They might try to reason, explain, justify. They might try to appeal to the narcissist's better side, believing that if they just communicate clearly enough, everything will make sense. But eventually, something changes. The super empath begins to understand that the narcissist doesn't want clarity. They want control. They want confusion. They want reactions, especially emotional ones. That's how they feed their ego. So the super empath makes a shift, quietly, internally. They stop trying to fix it. They stop trying to prove anything. Instead, they start watching, really watching. They begin to see the patterns. How the narcissist twists stories, creates double standard, plays victim and weaponizes affection. They see how every apology is strategic, how every compliment is a hook, how every moment of vulnerability is followed by manipulation. And once they see it, they can't unsee it. Detachment is next. Not coldness, not indifference, but a deep emotional boundary. The super empath starts pulling their energy back. They stop explaining themselves. They stop defending against lies. They stop giving emotional reactions. And this drives the narcissist insane, because control only works when the other person is emotionally engaged. When the empath detaches, it's like unplugging the narcissist's power source. The drama no longer works. The guilt no longer lands. The silent treatment no longer scares. And then comes the most powerful piece: destroying illusions. The super empath no longer sees the narcissist as a powerful figure or a wounded soul to be saved. They see the truth, a manipulator wearing a mask. The illusion of love, the illusion of connection, the illusion of safety, it all shatters. And once it's shattered, it can't be rebuilt. The narcissist is left exposed, and for the first time, powerless. Not because the empath fought back harder, but because they refused to keep playing a role in a game designed to keep them small. The super empath rises not with revenge, but with a calm, grounded awareness that cuts through every lie the narcissist ever told. A narcissist hate what they can't control. That's not just a preference, it's a threat to their identity. Control is everything to them. They build entire relationships around it. Whether through charm, guilt, intimidation, or silent manipulation, their goal is always the same: to shape how you think, how you feel, how you respond. They study you, not to understand you, but to dominate you. They find your patterns, how you react to praise, how you respond to criticism, what makes you anxious, what makes you stay. Once they know your rhythm, they play it like an instrument. And as long as you keep dancing to that tune, they feel powerful. But everything changes when the empath starts to shift. When the person who used to over-explain suddenly says nothing. When the one who used to seek reassurance stops asking. When the one who used to give endless chances starts setting hard boundaries. That's when the narcissist loses their grip. Because the predictability is gone, the emotional responses they relied on tears, anger, pleading disappear. The empath becomes a wild card. And to a narcissist, unpredictability feels like chaos they can't control. The empath starts doing things that make no sense to the narcissist. They start smiling without seeking permission. They start walking away from conversations designed to provoke them. They start taking care of themselves instead of managing the narcissist's moods. The narcissist pokes and prods, trying to trigger the old reactions, but the empath is no longer playing along. It's like trying to run old software on a completely new system. It crashes every time. This unpredictability isn't about being erratic. It's about reclaiming autonomy. The empath no longer responds from fear, guilt, or obligation. They respond from clarity, from groundedness, from self-worth. And the narcissist can't track that. They don't know how to manipulate someone who no longer needs their approval. They don't know how to provoke someone who no longer needs validation. They don't know how to control someone who has already chosen freedom over familiarity. And that freedom, the ability to act from self rather than from reaction, is what destabilizes the narcissist most. Because when the empath no longer follows the script, the narcissist is left with nothing but the echo of their own manipulation and the realization that they've lost the power they thought they'd always have. But then the shift happens. The super empath, who has felt everything, carried everything, tolerated everything, finally says no, not with rage, not with threats, but with a calm, grounded certainty that no isn't just a word. It's a turning point. It's a declaration. I see what's happening, and I'm not participating anymore. And that boundary, even if it's just one, is enough to shake the narcissist's entire foundation, because for the first time, they are no longer in charge of the narrative. And because narcissists don't know how to connect without control, they start unraveling. The scripts fail. The charm fails. The intimidation fails. Everything that once gave them leverage suddenly has no effect. The super empath is no longer reacting. They're choosing. They're protecting. They're reclaiming the space that was once hijacked by someone else's chaos and making it sacred again. Silence is a weapon in the hands of a super empath. Not the kind of silence that comes from fear or defeat, but the intentional, deliberate silence that follows awakening. For a narcissist, silence used to be their move. They used it to punish, to control, to make the empath anxious and desperate for reconnection. They knew that the empath couldn't stand emotional distance, so they used absence like a leash. But when the roles reverse, when the empath goes silent, it's not a tactic, it's a boundary. It's clarity in action. It's the empath finally realizing that not every battle deserves a response, and not every lie deserves correction. Silence becomes the moment where the narcissist's manipulation loses oxygen, because without reaction, there's no fuel. Narcissists thrive on attention, even negative attention. They want drama. They want emotional chaos. They want the empath to chase, to beg, to explain. So when the empath offers nothing, no text, no call, no emotional expression, the narcissist starts to unravel. The control they thought they had slips through their fingers like dust. And then there's indifference. If silence is the weapon, indifference is the sword. Indifference cuts deeper than anger ever could. Anger still shows you care, still shows you're emotionally invested. But indifference, that's the absence of attachment. That's where true power lives. The empath who used to cry, overthink, and try harder no longer even flinches. They've shifted from needing the narcissist's validation to not caring at all. And that shift to a narcissist is devastating, because a narcissist needs to feel important. They need to be the center of your world, even if it's through pain. They want to be loved or hated, but never ignored. Indifference tells them they are irrelevant, that they no longer matter, that their ability to influence your mind, your heart, your energy is gone. And that truth is unbearable for someone whose entire identity is built on external control. The empath's silence and indifference are not passive. They are power moves. They represent the final stage of detachment. The moment when the empath no longer needs to prove a point, change the narcissist, or revisit the past. They've stepped out of the cycle, and the narcissist is left trying to play a game with someone who's already walked off the field without saying a word. Healing is the ultimate revenge because it is the one thing the narcissist never expects. They expect you to stay broken. They expect you to keep needing them. They expect the wounds they cause to keep you stuck in confusion, pain, and self-doubt. Narcissists rely on damage. They rely on the chaos they create to keep you emotionally tethered to them. As long as you're hurt, you're reactive. As long as you're reactive, they still have power. They may discard you, but they count on the fact that you'll still be thinking about them, replaying the past, wondering what went wrong. That's how they maintain their grip, through the echo of the pain they planted. But healing shatters that illusion. Healing means you stop bleeding from the wounds they inflicted. It means you stop waiting for an apology that will never come. It means you stop obsessing over the version of them that never really existed. When you heal, you stop needing closure because you've given it to yourself. You begin to rewrite the story, not as a victim, but as someone who walked through fire and came out stronger, clearer, and more alive. The narcissist doesn't know what to do with a healed empath. The reactions they once triggered no longer show up. The guilt trips don't land. The gaslighting doesn't work. The emotional hooks they used to rely on, gone. The empath sees everything now, not just the patterns, but themselves. They see their own value. They understand their own worth. They no longer blame themselves for the narcissist's dysfunction. And that is what truly kills the narcissist's influence, because influence requires access, emotional access, mental access, physical access, and healing builds walls where there used to be open doors. It creates peace where there used to be turmoil. It builds self-trust where there used to be self-doubt. The narcissist can't thrive in that environment. There's no chaos to feed off. No confusion to exploit, no emotional energy to hijack. Healing turns the tables in a way no argument ever could. It doesn't just remove the narcissist's power, it erases their significance. They go from being the center of your emotional universe to a lesson you've already learned. The part of the story that no longer has the power to hurt you or define who you are. A super empath turns pain into purpose, and that transformation is a form of torture for a narcissist. Because narcissists don't just want to hurt you, they want to leave a permanent imprint. They want the damage they cause to define you. They want your identity to be shaped by the pain they inflicted. It's not enough for them to cause chaos. They want you to break and stay broken so that your world always leads back to them, even if only in suffering. But a super empath does something different. They don't just survive the trauma, they study it. They feel it fully, let it burn, and then use the ashes to rebuild something stronger. They stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what can I build from this? That shift terrifies the narcissist because it means the pain no longer belongs to them. The narrative is no longer theirs to control. The very thing they meant to use as a weapon becomes the raw material for the empath's evolution. Purpose is powerful. Purpose is healing with direction. It's what happens when the empath takes everything they've been through and starts using it to uplift others, to set boundaries, to teach, to speak, to live with clarity. Their pain becomes fuel, and that fire creates momentum. They become the version of themselves the narcissist tried to keep buried, confident, clear, unapologetic. And when that happens, the narcissist is forced to witness the one outcome they tried to prevent: irrelevance. Because now the empath doesn't just move on, they rise. They become a guide for others. They become a mirror of truth that exposes manipulation without saying a word. They walk into rooms no longer carrying shame, but wisdom. And that evolution reflects everything the narcissist lacks: depth, accountability, growth. The narcissist watches the empath become what they themselves can never be: authentic and powerful from within. That transformation stings not because the empath hurt the narcissist back, but because they refused to stay small. They refused to stay broken. They refused to let pain be the end of the story. The narcissist loses twice. First, when they no longer have control, and again when they realize they fueled the very awakening that destroyed their grip. So if you're a super empath, you don't need revenge. You don't need to yell. You don't need to prove anything. You just need to heal. You just need to reclaim your voice and walk away with your power intact, because that is how you end the game. And that is how you torture a narcissist.